The other day, I walked past one of my Year 9 students doing a quiet writing task in the library. She had a task sheet in front of her. Write a diary entry from a perspective of a character in a novel she'll study in English. English isn't my area, but as we do, I'll stop to chat to her. But instead of jotting down ideas, she had a window open asking AI, write a diary entry from a teenager in a war zone. I paused, thought about it for a second. Now look, I use AI every day. It's a very powerful tool for teachers and students. It is a tool that we need to embrace and learn to adapt and utilize for our own benefit in terms of professional development as well as future job prospects for our students. But this was a little bit different, and I want to address that because this is an area that a lot of teachers are concerned about, because what I was saying wasn't teaching, it was something a bit different. Students, instead of typing that question to AI, they would type it into Google and then see what sort of response and followed up. Is what we call cognitive offloading, is when we rely on external tools like AI, notes, devices, do our thinking our brains used to do on their own. It's not new. Writing a grocery list is a kind of offloading. Using a calculator, using cruise control on your car, or using GPS, such as Google Maps, to guide you when you're driving to a destination. But what's different now is that students aren't just offloading memory, they're offloading analysis, creativity, and even judgment. And the research is starting to show an impact. So a study has just come out of Switzerland by international educated and AI researcher Timothy Cook, published in Psychology Today, titled AI Weakens Critical Thinking. This is how to rebuild it. It's a timely and provocative read that explores what we may be losing in our minds as we gain in our AI convenience. So we look at the example of my students. Now we multiply that decision across millions of students, workers, and thinkers around the world. That, Cook argues, is a new cognitive offloading epidemic. His research from Switzerland shows a significant negative correlation between AI tool usage and critical thinking ability. In other words, as we rely more on AI to think for us, the less we're exercising our own cognitive muscles. And like any muscle, if you don't use it, you lose it. And this phenomenon builds on what researchers once called the Google effect, a tendency to forget information we know is easily searchable, but for now, they think it's worse. Search engines at least required us to evaluate and synthesize the information presented to us. AI does that part for us, feeding us polished paragraphs without any mental sweat. So instead of co-creating knowledge, we become passive consumers of machine-generated thought. And that scares a lot of people, including teachers. As Cook puts it, we've begun to outsource memory has evolved into outsourcing our thinking or our reasoning. Students who rely heavily on AI tools perform worse on tasks that involve evaluation, synthesis, and problem solving. It's not the student's fault because they're using the tools that are available for them. In the name of efficiency, they're building habits that weaken the very skills they need most to survive in the modern economy. These are the skills that employers are actually looking for. Now, it's easy to see why this happens. When a student is tired, unsure, under pressure, type her prompt in ChatGPT or another system. Can feel like relief. So they get a bit of dopamine hit because they suddenly get a nice instant response to their query. Who else wouldn't want that? It feels like they're being productive, but it's a bit of a trap, isn't it? As I said before, the benefit you get from AI is based on the existing schematics of knowledge that you already retain and how you can make those links between the different information that ChatGPT supplies to you. And the danger is that is not happening now. And it isn't the danger of what's happening now, it's what happens over time when students develop these particular type of work habits. That we need to change. But like everything, there's good news. We're not sitting in a deep dark hole that we can't do anything about it. It's a bit like the debates when calculators first became available. I imagine that maybe there was a debate around there where slide rules first became available. These are tools that we need to learn to use and adapt within our educational context, so we can then develop those skills we require in our students. As teachers, we design our learning environments. We have that control over it. We have control over what happens in our classroom. And we want to harness the benefits of AI while at the same time developing cognitive independence, that ability to work within their own mind to come up with solutions, ideas for particular problems. In light of that, I've got 4 takeaways or do-nows strategies that you can try this week if you see your students are using AI too much. In my case, in my school, AI is banned. We can't use it at all. Though I do see students using it unofficially, like I saw in the library, because they can find workarounds on the network to actually get access to it. We need to help our students build the awareness of what cognitive offloading is and where it can be beneficial and other times it's not, and actively choose to engage their brains in what they need to do. I'm often speaking to my students about brain plasticity, how you've got to use your brain, it will grow and adapt as you learn new knowledge and build those links within their knowledge. These are 4 things you can implement straight away if AI is used within your classroom, or suggestions for students to do at home instead of using AI. First one in the classroom is run an AI-free zone. And that's not something you do all the time. Like I said, we need to teach them how to use these tools. Create a space in your lesson where AI isn't allowed on purpose. Control your environment as you do as a teacher. It's not a punishment, but it's training and developing a different set of skills for the students. This is where students work through some messy middle of thinking, problem solving, creating without shortcutting. You can move all technology away from them. Get them to apply their skills, pen and paper, small group discussion, or on their own to develop thinking, brainstorming, initial idea formation, or critiquing resources that you spied. Examples of this are things like warm-ups, creative brainstorms, planning sessions where devices stay shut and let the brain do the heavy lifting. And I know as teachers, we're already doing that. Second one is actually highlighting for students to spot when they're actually offloading their thinking. We want to make sure we're engaging metacognition development of our students, the way they think and approach problems. So helping students name when they're offloading, they can reflect on it, then they can control it and decide when they wish to use it. You can simply give this a question. Was this a task you could have done yourself? What sort of thinking did you skip when you're having conversation with students? Get them to articulate the thinking and how they're approaching problems in those first initial steps or when they get stuck. After an assignment, ask students to annotate what they did themselves versus what they got help with from peers, tools, AI. What is their thinking within a task? Where did they use cognitive offloading with different tools to actually help solve the problems or answer that part of the questions? Third one, which I like doing, is comparing human versus AI thinking within the context of your subject. Give students a task and show them an AI-generated version of it. And this is lots of fun. Ask them to critique it. What's missing? What sounds generic? What doesn't really sound like a human? Would a real person include that sort of information in their content? And this is easily adaptable to whatever your learning context is. You're the expert. You can design the AI response to really highlight these differences that you want to engage your students with. Run a class activity where students edit an AI written paragraph, add emotional insight, nuance, personal voice. If you're in history, which is one of my areas, look at the way it structures the argument. What facts and content does it include when supporting its point? Pull apart what AI does and see how they can improve it with their own cognitive processes of thinking and knowledge. And the last one is something we're moving to is a shift away from the product or the end result and focusing on the process and the steps students went through to arrive at that solution. Make thinking part of the work visible. There's a lot of educational academics around that talk about visible learning, making it visible, the learning that you're doing. It gives the students the ability to then reflect of how they came to the conclusion and what thinking went into that process. And this is pretty evident in areas like design thinking, where you're going through this entire process to get the end result. The end result itself is not as valuable. It's what they learned on the way through. Try this, for example. Have students submit a thinking log where they jot down key decisions, dead ends, how their ideas evolved across a task, and that can be done within a single class. When I'm teaching, for example, if I'm in a computer science class, I can do this when they're teaching coding and programming. What solutions did they first come up with? Did it work? What didn't it work? How did they adjust? So we're going to log with their thinking as they're working through a problem when they're trying to code a solution to it. Same with English and science. It's a natural part of the scientific process there. You record everything as you go through, you test your hypothesis. None of these approaches are new. We're just applying them in the context. They need to develop their own thinking. So cognitive offloading isn't evil. In fact, it's a survival strategy. We all need to do it, and we all do it. But we can't let it become automatic or unconscious. But we can't let it be automatic. We need to highlight it when students are using it. Therefore, they can control when they use it and the impact and the influence it has on their work and their final product. Our students are growing up in a world where it's easier than ever to skip the hard thinking. In my opinion, we want to embrace problem finders, people who can find problems that need to be solved and then develop solutions for that. Citizens who can make good judgments. And we need to make sure they can articulate that based on a range of evidence and resources. We need to protect the space where the thinking happens, and that's our responsibility in the classroom. So next time your students reach for AI, pause with them, ask, what would you look like if you try this on your own first? Develop their own thinking and then use AI to improve what they've got. Thanks again for joining me at the Teachers AI Cafe. In today's episode, I gave you a few practical strategies, maybe even sparked some reflection of how we can address AI within your classroom if you're concerned about it. I'd love it if you share with your colleague. Remember to subscribe and put a comment or a rating on the podcast so other people can find it. As always, I hope you enjoyed this as you listen to it, whether you're sipping your cuppa, going for a walk, or in the car having a drive. Till next time,